Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to what is effectively the third round of the Nürburgring Langstrecken series, the RAVENOL Nürburgring Langstrecken series. It is actually race number 4 of the NLS season, and we didn't get race number 1, so it's a little bit complicated. But on the calendar, it's race 4 and 5 this weekend. They serve also as the qualifiers for the RAVENOL ADAC 24 hours. I'm John Hindorf, and Neil Cole joins me in our global broadcast centre for a 4-hour race that, for the first and indeed only time this season before the ADAC RAVENOL 24 hours, goes into darkness. So a real opportunity here, Neil, for drivers, however much experience or not they have, to see the Nürburgring in, if you'll pardon the pun, a completely different light. Good afternoon to you.
Afternoon, John. Hello, everybody. Yes, it's going to be a real step into the unknown for a lot of, many of these drivers have driven the Nordschleife in the night many times, but plenty, and some of the bigger names absolutely have not. So the prospect for the next sort of 4.5 hours, once we get the grid and the formation lap out of the way and then the racing begins, could get very tasty, I think. And it's glorious conditions there now, but I do get a sense that there might be some rain incoming. I mean, as we know, the Nordschleife has its own microclimate. In fact, it has its own microclimates in different sections of this famous green hell. But there's a lot to contend with over the next sort of 4.5 hours.
Your first time commentating with us on the Nürburgring. I'm going to tell you what we say to to actually all of the audience out there, whether particularly for those that are new, many Max Verstappen followers. Cleanse your mind of all things that you think you know about motor racing. A minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes of a lead here isn't even half a lap. We've got lap times that are somewhere between 9 and 10 minutes at the front of the field if you get a full lap. We never see a safety car, even if there's barrier repairs going on. This is something entirely different from anything else. You've been at Le Mans, you've seen Le Mans, that's 8.5 miles. This is pretty much twice that. It's nearly 3 times the amount of cars. There'll be fewer cars for the 24 hours this year. The start grids, which used to be 220 when I first started talking about this back in 2007 was the first time we came here with Aston Martin, actually, primarily so that their team at Le Mans could hear what was happening. Those were the days when Le Mans test and Le Mans didn't happen on consecutive weekends, and we had this crazy idea to broadcast at least some of the Nürburgring 24 hours back to the team that were at Le Mans for a quote-unquote free weekend. And it's carried on since then. 220 then, it went down to 170 for the longest time. They cut out some of the smaller engine cars. And most recently, it has been cut again to 150 cars. Not quite got that here, but we're pretty close to it. So cleanse your mind, Neil. You and I have talked together on very, very short laps in terms of things like Race of Champions. When you look at the track map, what does that make you think when you see the track map for the Nürburgring and for the Nordschleife?
Well, it's more, for me, from my background, it's more like a rally stage than, if you think of it like that, because it's not like Le Mans, it's not like La Sarthe, because it's not a public road for some of it and a track for other parts of it. Obviously, this format of the Nürburgring Nordschleife does use some of the traditional Grand Prix circuit as well, so that is more complicated. It's like when you're on a long drive in the countryside and you suddenly hit a kind of conurbation and you think, oh, this looks like a nice little town, and then you go back into the forests. And so, but the thing about it is it's got such undulation and all the different sections. So you look at a map of it, and the map of it that I have always looked at, and that you'll sometimes see it on the on the bumper of a car in front of you, and you go, oh, that person knows the Nordschleife. The actual map doesn't do the scale justice.
No.
It's enormous. It's absolutely enormous.
For those of you coming to us for the first time on the world feed, either on RS1, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels, what a busy weekend we're having, by the way. Fantastic four of endurance racing. World Endurance Championship just qualified at Imola. We've got NLS now, we've got the streets of Long Beach and a 100-minute race to come, and also at Spa with the 12 hours, the Michelin 12 hours as well, all going on this weekend. Very little overlap, thank goodness for that. When you look at this and when you think about what's going on here, you really have to recalibrate, as I mentioned. Just the length, and they will do a full sighting lap, a full formation lap. There'll be 3 different groups of cars that will go off, roughly speaking 45, 50 in each class. There's a little bit of wiggle room for the organisers, depending on if you've got a faster car that's a bit out of place. The likelihood is they'll move them through a grid. Some penalties that we've got to talk about. By the way, we've had a busy day at the Nürburgring Nordschleife today. With practice this morning, then an absolutely stunning German Historic Endurance Championship with a couple of beautiful Porsche 911 RSR IMSAs at the front. Oliver Boyka and Michael Hughes won that with Andre Kunkel, Michael Funke and Heiko Hammelin finished second in a similar car. Ralf Schall drove the whole race in his lovely Mercedes-Benz 190 Evo 2. And there's some HWA Evos here that are going to be running here in SPX as well, looking a bit like that. So we're waiting for the formalities. The grid is being cleared. There will be a national anthem. I'll tell you quickly about the grid penalties. The biggest one is for the 999 Porsche Cayman GT4 Club Sport, where their driver Kosharov drove far too fast under double yellow flags and again at a code 60. He has had his permit revoked and he's been disqualified from the weekend. He'll have to do his permit again, so the team has withdrawn from the weekend. The 155 BMW, Gresek and Runefaf, exceeding code 60. He got 2 DMSB penalty points and a 45-second stop-and-go penalty. And at the front of the field, the number 3, Max Verstappen, Lucas R. Mercedes, qualified in 6th. Max did, I think, some of the qualifying. And they will start in 9th because there was quite a serious collision between Lucas R. and the number 941 Cayman GT4 Club Sport Type 982. And they therefore will take that penalty on the start. Grid being cleared.
And I think, John, that's one of the first places we can start when we unpick what people might expect coming to this in terms of the tradition, you know, other forms of racing that they're used to, because that penalty that dropped, the 3-place grid drop for the number 3 Max Verstappen Lucas Auer car, was for an incident, and the onus on this circuit and in this race series is very much on the car that is overtaking to make a clean overtake, and that's what happened in qualifying, and that's why they got a grid drop from 6th on the grid to 9th on the grid, is because yes, they have blue flags, but the onus is on the overtaking car, the approaching car, to get through cleanly. It's not like other forms of endurance racing. The other classes don't have to just get out of the way and clear the apex for you to breeze past, and that's a very clear example of the consequences of not playing by the very specific NLS rules.
Well, and that, you make a very good point there, Neil, as the cars are rolling off for the start of the formation lap. It's the short... no, actually, now this is in direct contradiction to what Peter Kate and I were told last week. And Peter Kate's racing here this weekend. We'll keep you up to date with where he was. It's his 24th 24 hours race at the Nürburgring this year. His book, Racing Hell, deals with some of his racing on this circuit and other things that he's done as well. It was made, or was suggested at least to me, that we'd be using the sprint version of the Grand Prix circuit, but quite clearly, as they've rolled off the grid, they are using the full run all the way down to the bottom of the hill, where we'll have the drifting competition, or drifting display, should I say, when we get to the main race in May. So they're going all the way down to the bottom of the hill. As you might imagine, there is a big crowd here in the grandstands out in the forest, impossible to count, of course. So all the way down to what is now called the Goodyear hairpin, and starting Group 1 will start to form up. It's the BMW number 23 that leads them off from the AMG, the Hartling and higher AMG in second. Another BMW in third. It's the David Pittard KCMG car. Then the Porsche, Nico Müller car, Mauro Engel, Fabi Schiller in the AMG, Max Verstappen and Lucas Dar still listed in 7th on the starting grid. They'll drop back, 6th rather, they'll drop back to 9th. Then the Bortolotti machine, then the Audi of Christopher Haase, Alex Sims, Jamie Green. Lamborghini in 9th, 10th, another Porsche, the 1-2-3. Christian Kronos and Nicky Thiem in the Aston Martin in 11th position. Thomas Preining, Matt Campbell among the drivers in the 12th place Porsche. 13th, another Porsche. 14th, another Porsche, the number 5 car. Frank Stippler is in the 65 Ford in 15th position. That's the Ford Mustang. 62 years for the Mustang, and they've just broken another record. That's 2 Ford records recently. BMW with Jordan Pepper, von der Linde and Max Hesse. And so the big names go as they run through. In 20th position, 10th row of the grid, we've got the McLaren and then the BMW with Charles Wirtz in it as well, I noticed there. Ifeye, Anders Fjordbach in a BMW. Neil Verhagen in the BMW in 24th. Felipe Fernando Laser in 25th position. And just an absolute cornucopia of talent. The front car's running to a GT3, it's called SPX here. Jake Hill with Kyle Tilley running in this race as well. Jake will be off. Actually, Jake was at Spa earlier on today to do some of the Spa 12-hour race. So all of the sharp end of the field are what are called SP9s, should I say? I think it's an SPX. SP9s. I got too excited about the SPX cars, one of which is a BMW M3 Touring. Now, Touring meaning estate car, but it is built to GT3 specifications, although clearly it's not GT3 homologated. So that underneath is the running gear, and quite a lot of the BMW M4 GT3 started just over a year ago as an April Fool's joke. And I talked to Andreas Russ, the head of BMW M Motorsports, earlier this week at Imola, and he said there were so many people that said we have to make it that we decided we'd have a look at it, and the BMW engineering team went to town on that, and it's a beautiful piece of engineering.
Yeah, gorgeous. Yeah, the SPXs are extraordinary. You've got the HW8 Evo R, which is the Mercedes-Benz DTM tribute, the KTM Crossbow, and you know, just to have them in the mix with some of the best GT3, or as we have to call them, SP9 fields. SP9s, it's just so good to watch because it mixes up the heritage with the very sharp end of GT racing.
Well, you and Arjuna tomorrow have got the excitement of the top qualifying, which is a wee bit of practice for something we see in May. And Andreas Rees was saying to me, look, we might not be able to win the race because of the balance of performance on the SPX car, but we're going to try our best to get into top qualifying on Sunday, i.e. tomorrow,
Wow.
and see if we can set pole position. SPX car has taken pole position before. The Glickenhaus did it some time ago, and indeed, the trophy for the ADAC RAVENOL 24 hours pole is the Glickenhaus trophy. And of course, away, Neil, from all of those exotic cars at the front of the field, there are older BMWs. We've got the Dacia back out again. It's a big fan favourite. It is by no means the quickest car out there. There's always some raised eyebrows about that. Pretty much every form of Porsche and BMW, GT3, GT4, TCR cars out there. There's some Toyota GRs out there as well. Not quite as much as the young timer that we'll see as the support race in May, but everybody out there, and this I think we can all relate to, Neil, loving motorsport as we do, everybody out there is racing for something.
Yeah. Just a quick bit of breaking news that the car number 36, the Z4 GT3, is in the pits. So looking like it might not start, or at least make the start. Currently, that's qualified in 54th place. BMW.
This is the E89 Z4 all the way back to 2013. That's back out there. Ran in NLS3 last weekend to homologate some tyres. It didn't end well. They had a suspension breakage just going down to Sabine Schmidt's curve on the entrance to the Nürburgring Nordschleife, and I really hope that car gets out and does some laps. The third set of starters have gone. I just noticed that Lucas Auer is starting today in that number 3 Windward Red Bull Verstappen racing car. Max will start tomorrow is what we're hearing. Here are the starting drivers. In the number 23 BMW, it's David Hahn. Janis Fitje is in the number 11. David Pittard on row 2 in the KCMG. Dan Arrow, very fast young Dutchman, in the 48. Maro Engel starts the AMG number 80. Mirko Bortolotti starts his number 84 car. It has to be Christopher Haase in the Audi. Lucas Auer we've mentioned. The number 7 as well is in there. That is... just scan through the starting list that I have got. That is Paul starting that, isn't it? Oh no, that's interesting, because I don't have him on the list for that Toyota Racing United SP10.
There's been a few changes, I think, since the provisional entry list went out. Like I saw on Timo Scheider's socials that he joined the field, and he is in the running in this race. So John, I think in terms of stints, if you've got Lucas Auer starting in the number 3 Mercedes, the Max Verstappen Windward car, now that's got to be because they want Max to do some driving into the dark, right? I mean,
correct.
And how does, so just, you know, I've been watching this, I've been following this, and I've been doing my research, but just for those people that are used to endurance racing where the pit stops happen in a certain way, the driver changes happen in a certain way, just refresh about fueling and driver changes, because it's not like any other racing series, this.
Well, that's a very good point you make, Neil, and thank you for bringing that up. There's an awful lot of things that aren't standard about the Nürburgring. We've talked about some of them. One of them, and if you're watching because of Max Verstappen, when I said cleanse your mind of all things motor racing, that applies to the pits and the pit stops as well. This weekend, you might have up to 6 or 7 cars sharing a single pit box. And they won't necessarily be from the same team. That pit box has got one fuel pump sitting outside it. That fuel pump is exactly the same pistol grip delivery device as you'd get around your local supermarket or your service station on the motorway. So fueling is not the precision operation that it is, say, at Le Mans or somewhere like that. So to help even out the fact that those pumps, it would be impossible to make them all pump at the same rate. You have what's called a mandatory pit stop time, and that is determined by how many laps you are out on the circuit. The longer you stay out, the more amount of fuel you'll have to put in to refill the car, and therefore the longer your pit stop is. Now, you can use that strategically, and indeed last weekend in the 4-hour race, we had what was eventually the winning BMW, the Yokohama BMW, coming in early because their tyre pressures were all wrong. They'd set the tyre pressures wrong for the conditions. It got much warmer, much quicker than they expected. They came in after 6 laps and therefore took their mandatory pit stops. Everyone else came after 7, had a longer pit stop, and effectively, to use a term that our F1 refugees this weekend will understand, it was an undercut on an 16-mile lap, but they were up to pace by the time they came round, and they held on to that lead through the rest of the pit stop cycle. It's about an hour's worth of fuel, give or take, depending on how many slow zone and code 60s we have. There will be no safety car. There will be no neutralisation of the field. We will control it with slow zones, double yellows and code 60s, which are absolutely policed to the nth degree with GPS tracking. And you heard me talking about that driver Koshehov in the Porsche Cayman earlier on, the 999 car. Well, he has had his permit revoked and he's been disqualified from the event. His 2 teammates won't continue, and that car is out for the weekend. There is no margin for error. That's why everyone, Max Verstappen included, and Max was quite happy to do this, had to do his permit, do the classroom, do the observed driving, and then complete a statutory amount of laps under racing conditions in a low-powered car to the satisfaction of the racing stewards and the race director. Everybody has to do that. There are no exceptions. And those pit stops, what we see out on the circuit, you will see cars being towed back. You'll see cars on the back of flatbeds. You will see Unimog, 4-wheel drives, towing trailers full of Armco and a portable welding device. Meantime, in the pit lane, that Sauber Motor and Motorsport BMW doesn't look good. Does not look good, Neil.
No, that's got a lot of work still to be done before they can even think about leaving the pit lane. That's a real shame. We were briefly on board with some tyre warming going on. You could hear a couple of different cars. It's very exciting. The build-up to this is getting exciting. But just a question about Koshehov. So how quickly will he be able to get his license back for this very specific Nürburgring-specific license to be able to drive again? Because that's a big blow to him and his team.
It's my understanding he'll have to go through the whole permit procedure again.
Okay.
So to the satisfaction of the stewards, it's a big slap on the wrist. They can ask him to stay away for an amount of time. That has happened in the past. We've seen it at the 24 hours, Neil, where a driver has blown through the 120 speed limits, the 60 speed limits, the double yellows, etc. And they've been asked to come to the pit lane, and they've been told to get out the car, take their kit off, and go back to the hotel. It stops them, and then the problem then is if you've only got 2 other drivers in the 24-hour race, it's nigh on impossible for you to complete it and stay within the rules for consecutive driving hours. If you've got 4, you can probably drop down to 3 and do it. 5 to 4, you can definitely do it. But there is no room because of the unique nature of this circuit, because of the speed, because of the lack of runoff, because of the massive disparity in pace between the different classes of the cars. You cannot take any risks. This is about respect for your competitors, for the circuit, and for the regulations. And anyone that steps outside of them, they will get jumped on from a great height.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. I have to say, I've driven a lot of laps around here on corporate days, on manufacturing days, not raced here yet, and I do say yet, but I completely understand why that has to be the case.
So it'll be quite common for us to see in the race, you know, safety trucks on track while they try and repair barriers, try and retrieve cars, flatbeds, moving on the circuit, and for the racing in sections to go into code 60s. So you will not see a, you know, it's very unlikely you'll see a full red flag. And there is no kind of safety car as such. Everyone knows the rules, and if you're watching the pictures, then you see that there's a random, you know, yellow flashing lights truck on the track. That's okay. The drivers all know that it's safe.
Yes, and what you will see as well, you may see course vehicles out there sitting behind hampered cars. And again, they will bring them back like an escort vehicle in some respects, and that again is not something to get worried about, not something to get yourself irate about. That is exactly what we would expect to see here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. It is that type of place where there is nothing that is the same as anywhere else. It is an incredible place to go and watch motor racing, and if you haven't done it, I heartily recommend that you do. The leading cars are on the Dottiger Höhe. The Dottiger Höhe is the long, straight run back, well over a kilometre and a half. The long straight run back towards the Grand Prix circuit, or sometimes called the Grand Prix Strecke in German, and the cars will be asked to line up. Oh, good news! The Z3 E89, if you are a BMW enthusiast, is out on the apron. Now, with a bit of luck and a fair wind, that car will be allowed to follow on in the gap, in the 3-minute gap between the first and the second group. The timing here as well is something a little bit different, and that's something else to get used to as well, Neil, because although there are gaps between the groups when we start for safety reasons, the timing system is clever enough to get rid of those gaps once we get into the race. So if you start in the third group, you are not 6 minutes behind the guy at the front before you even get going. It's very cleverly done.
Very clever.
Yeah, I don't. Can you imagine trying to do that without computers?
No.
No. Aggregate racing is something I used to hate having to commentate on, because you had to do the arithmetic in your head. Well, the safety car is coming up towards Antonius Bucher, which is the tiny little left-hand kink. You barely look through to turn the wheel there. You just look through the corner, and then you head up to the fearsome Tiergarten. So many places on this track that are scary. I mentioned Ford having broken 2 records. The Ford Mark IV with a 6 minutes 15, fastest ever American manufactured car round. Fred Vervisch did that a couple of weeks ago. I had him on Midweek Motorsport, and he said there's more to come from that car. And then the GTD car went out and did a 6 minutes 40. Now, bear in mind, the outright lap record on the Nordschleife alone still stands to Stefan Beloff in a Porsche Le Mans car of its time, and that was 6 minutes 11. Incredible to think that those cars were running around there back in the day.
Just a quick update on that number 36 car that we saw on the apron of the pit lane. It's being allowed to do a short lap of the Grand Prix track as a kind of shakedown to make sure it's able to join the race.
Yes, you are allowed to do that as you come out the pits. If you have a problem, you can cut back straight into the pits. Obviously, that lap then doesn't count. Nürburgring NLS. It is the 4th round of the year. It's the first of 2 4-hour races for the ADAC RAVENOL 24-hour qualifiers. The start line has been moved further down since most of you have been watching. It's much closer to the first corner. The lights are red, they go to green, and it's the BMW and the AMG that get underway straight away. Very clean break, 1, 2, 3 across the track. A little bit further back now into the braking area, but they're not going hard right here. It's still right, but then straight into the left-handed Haug hook on the BMW, on the Mercedes-Benz arena. There are some trucks, etc., in the part of the circuit that we normally use. So this is the full Grand Prix loop that we use in the Nürburgring Nordschleife. So the lap times can't be compared with the previous NLS races. So there will be a tad longer than what we saw and what Max was doing earlier on. Pretty clean break at the front of the field. And the starting drivers beginning to settle in. David Hahn from pole position, Janis Fitge and David Pittard in the number 47 EMG with Dan Arrow right in behind them. There were the top four as they go down the hill quite steeply here through the left and right-hander. Then they're climbing back up the other side. After that hairpin through the quick Schumacher S's, and then they'll plunge back down on the Grand Prix circuit. Still good opportunity to get heat in whichever tyre manufacturer's tyres you are using.
Saw a little bit of a touch on the gravel, and this is pretty much, this part of the Great Grand Prix circuit is pretty much the only time that you're ever going to be able to do that, because the rest of the circuit, the track is lined with Armco and walls and grass. So, you know, if you need to be pushed slightly wide, this is where it needs to happen.
Looked like Lucas Auer was having a little bit of a battle with number 911. Grello, as it's called, the Porsche. That's Thomas Preining, the quick Austrian Porsche driver who's in there. The BMW Touring going through right in the middle of that GT pack. The SPX car, then the Kasia yellow and white, what looks like an old 1990s Mercedes. Well, the centre part kind of is. The rest of it is bespoke. There's a twin-turbo V6 they're claiming somewhere around about 520 horsepower, they being HWA. Two cars here last weekend. They're saying there might be three in the race in the month of May for the 24-hour race. There's a almost black car, sort of a Sonax throwback colour, and that's very noticeable and recognisable Kasia coloured car. The second group comes through. A lot of Porsche Cup cars at the front of this. These would normally be doing duty in Porsche Carrera Cups around the world. This is the current version, although there's a brand new version in some already. The 992.1s are here. The 992.2s doing battle in IMSA, in Carrera Cup Asia, in Deutschland, and of course in the Carrera Cup this year. Look a little bit different to these cars at the front. These are extremely quick motor racing cars. Don't have as much aero as the SP9 cars, so actually in a straight line might even be a little bit quicker as they break away. You tend to let them slow or sort themselves out a little bit. I'm keeping an eye on what's going on out in the Nordschleife, the Gamoto Racing, with David Hahn behind the wheel, and the Schnitzelam Racing Mercedes were still first and second at the first split. Dan Arrow had moved up, as had Mirko Bortolotti. David Pittard down to 5th, Lucas Stoltz in 6th, Chris Haase in 7th for Scherer Sport PHX. Conrad Motorsports Lamborghini, the 7th place car. Then Nicky Thiem in the number 9 Aston Martin. The Trinity Solutions in the top 10 made up by the Winward Racing Mercedes of Lucas Auer. That's the number 3 car. Ahead, as I thought he was, of Manthey's Thomas Preining in that green and yellow. The Germans decided to call it Grello, as it is neither green nor yellow, as it were. So those were your top 10. That second group getting underway. The third group going through now in a moment or two's time. As they came to the line, it was the Adrenaline Motorsport team with Renazzo and Plusline AG, Porsche, BMW, Porsche, BSL and Black Falcon, Huffer Racing, Toyota Racing United with one of GT4 Evo 2 cars in there as well, the number 90 car. You'll see that when it comes round. Pretty decent start from everybody.
Yeah, it's been clean so far. And it's funny because you look at the timing screen and you're sort of looking at the purple sections going, no, forget that. This is a this lap is a long lap. But yeah, the good start from Gamoto Racing. You know, there's no mean feat to get that team up and running and to get pole and to lead this race.
Always a thought to me of what do you want to achieve in this race today? Yes, there is a race win. For some, there is a championship to think about as the third group comes over. By the way, we're going to get a 30-second stop and hold for tmracing.org. That's Benedict Hopfer and Sebastian Brandl in the Porsche Cayman, number 82. 30 seconds after the first lap in the race. The 999 has been given the black flag. That was the car that we said lost a driver. Actually, that's been cancelled. So the two drivers in the 4-hour race have been allowed to continue despite the fact that their teammate has lost. Yeah, I think that's fair because they weren't involved in that. Here's the third group getting underway. Lots of BMWs. There's some TCR cars in there that you'll recognise the shapes of as well. These cars somewhat different in capabilities in terms of top speed. Still very exciting to drive around the Nürburgring Nordschleife. The red Audi RS3 Saloon that you'll see, that's a family-run car, and that is, until it got a set of stickers on it recently, certainly last year in the Nürburgring 24 hours, it looked like a bog standard car. We've got a Cayman GT4 off coming down, I want to call that the old Ford curve. Yeah, doing a bit of rallycross. I think that's the silver and red, I think is the 296 car from memory. You have to have a mouse with a good scrolling capability for the starter here, because clearly you can't memorise everybody. Actually, I think it was the 396, the Adrenaline Motorsport car with Manhattan wheels, Klaus Fassbender, Christian Bulischbach and Andreas Schettler, Carlos Arimont. That's 3 Germans and a Spaniard in that car. I'll tell you in a moment. We'll get some details from race control. They are very good at passing the most important parts of the information through to us. It's Neil Cole and John Hindhoff in the first of 2 4-hour races this weekend from the Nürburgring. What happened to that little Porsche? Did he get a help? He certainly did. That was playing snooker with BMWs, and it wasn't potting the black, it was potting the silver, red and black, which was that Adrenaline Motorsport car. Adrenaline Motorsport, Neil, you'll hear that name a lot. They have a lot of entries, and when we go through the class leaders at various stages over the weekend, there'll be a lot of Adrenaline Motorsport mentions. They are a huge organisation in terms of how many cars they have here, as the leaders come back through for the first time. And here is the Gamoto Racing BMW. The first racing lap then of the 24-hour Nürburgring Qualifiers is in the book, and as they come through, it is an 8:19.383. That's the first lap I've seen this season on this circuit. Last weekend we were on the much shorter Grand Prix circuit with the cut through. So now we've got to start looking at that. Amazing to see the difference of who got the fastest sectors. There are 9 timing sectors here, never mind your micro sectors. I think the shortest one's about 10 seconds, but most of them are half a minute up to 2.5 minutes out in the forest. Already got an investigation going for the number 651, leaving the start formation early. Again, that probably, I'm guessing that's someone who hadn't seen that the start line had been moved further down. That was done last weekend for the first time, so better to learn this now than in the 24 hours in a few weeks' time. Leading cars then heading back out on lap 2. This has been exceptionally sensible from everybody at the front, Neil. Dare I say that?
Yeah, the top 10 have kept it really clean and tiny, and hardly any movement. I mean, Lucas Hour was back up to P9, but basically everyone else is kind of holding station. And what you have to remember as well is slipstreaming does work here, but there's nothing else to help them with overtaking. There are no other gizmos and gimmicks on the cars. It's just pure aerodynamics and driving skill and engine power.
As I said, I had Peter Cates, who's doing his 24th 24-hour here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife this year. He's racing this weekend. I'll try and pick out his car number for you when we see them go through. There was an interesting comment about some of the experienced drivers that they said that they felt Max Verstappen may have found a little hack, if you will, to be able to get a bit of extra speed when following someone. So Peter went back and watched the whole of NNS2, and particularly all the onboards when Verstappen was at the wheel, and he said, I think what he's done is he's been able to work out where the soft spot in the disturbed air behind the car in front is, and he's using that to be able to follow a little closer through the twisty bits without routing the front tyres. And by the way, we have tyre wars here. This is not a single tyre manufacturer event, far from it. By the time we get to the Nürburgring Nordschleife, we'll be well into double figures for different tyre manufacturers. So let's keep an eye open for that for Max when he gets in the car. And also, of course, his teammate, Lucas Ayr, and the other Winwood drivers, they will have been watching that as well. As soon as they saw that coming, they'll have done what Peter Cape did and gone back and watched it. But I thought it was very interesting that immediately Peter said, right, let's see if we can find out if that's true, whether it's a little bit of hype. And he said he felt it was true.
Wow.
And that there was just a little bit of an advantage to be held at the right distance to find that soft spot, as I say. That was how he described it, in the disturbed air. Down to Kesselchen now, one of my favourite parts of the circuit, the right-handed downhill hairpin, short shift, particularly in these highly powerful cars. And then right, and right again as you plunge downhill. After the fourth right, it's into a slow left-handed hairpin, but you're still going downhill. Early pit lane caller from one of the Cup 2 cars. I think that looks like one of the... Oh no, that was, I think, was the Reiter Engineering. That was the SP7 Thomas Ertl car.
Yeah, car
number 91.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Doesn't
a shame
look good
for them. That's a good team there. Sorry, Lucas Ertl, sorry, and Stefan Ertl and Maximilian Johannes, all German drivers in that GT3 Cup 991. That's why it's in the SP7 category. That's too early for that car to be in the pit lane. Good little battle pack out on the Nordschleife at the moment. The BMW trying to go round the outside of the Porsche and has somehow pulled it off as they climb the hill. That is impressive indeed.
I do wonder if that Porsche might have a problem, because it was going a little bit slower. It got past once and then it's got past again. So it didn't seem to be at full power through that section, and it's dropping back a little bit.
If you've got any power issues at that point of the track, going up the hill from Bergwerk up towards through the mid curve, and now they're up at the bottom. Oh, and someone pulling off right at the bottom of the test hill as they climb towards the Caracciola carousel. Remember, this place built in 1927 to take, or started in 1927 to take racing off the Eiffel roads, the old Eiffel Rennen. It was getting a bit hairy, screaming past people's doors at 120 plus miles an hour. And also at the same time, the local government thought, oh, we might be able to attract a bit of industry here. It'll be good for the construction. We'll get some work out of that. And part of it there, the Starstrecker, was to build that very steep test hill in the old days. If you go back, it's fascinating to go back into the 20s and 30s and see how road tests were conducted, and being able to climb a hill without the engine stalling was something that was highly prized. An engine that was torquey and that had the ability to be driven without shifting through the gears. Gearboxes weren't as they were now, and certainly you didn't have semi-automatics. You actually had pre-selectors, which was sort of the precursor to that. So that's how this place came into being. It's used extensively by major manufacturers. You'd never get it built now, Neil.
No.
It just couldn't happen.
Not allowed.
No, absolutely not.
I'm just, my spies are telling me that the number 69 McLaren has had a right rear tyre failure. That's the Ben Dur McLaren. So presumably that's having to make its either crawl its way back to get a fresh set of boots on.
Well, that's something else that's different here than anywhere else. They'll come back slowly. Volker Strycek, the veteran, former head of Opel's Performance Centre, OPC, the man behind the Foxtail Manta down through the years. I worked with Volker on a couple of projects when I was with Ray Mallock Limited. Oh, so that's how the Porsche past happened. It was going off, coming through that fast right-hander out in the country, and the KCMG AMG also trying to get through. David Pittard right in behind the Porsche, but off onto the dirt, putting, I'm sure, a lot of clag and rubbish on the slick racing tyres. So that is how it all happened. That's Dan Arrow in the Lush Motorsport number 48 car that was going backwards a wee bit there. The teal blue, big strike on the ground coming up to Tiergarten, right in front of Lucas Auer. That would be Maro Engel in the sister car, the Winwood Racing car. The teal blue, almost Miami blue, Leighton House blue Lamborghini is the Conrad Racing car, just going across the line now and heading down towards the first corner again. This is the track that they will be using at the 24 hours, taking this shortcut. In the other Nürburgring LS races, they go a bit tight around there, but then they cut off round about where the battles are going through now, rather than diving down the hill. Lamborghini absolutely flying at the moment. Of the Lamborghinis, that's the Red Bull Abt car, that's Mirko Bortolotti going down the hill with a lot of pace. And I can tell you that Jens Klingmann is in 12th overall in the BMW M3 Touring 24H. The fast wagon is in the top dozen, is leading SPX, and an 8:25.9 on its last lap around. So they'll be delighted with that. The BMW M team boss, or should I say BMW M Motorsport boss, Andreas Roos, is, I am absolutely certain, watching and listening from the WRT team hospitality at Pit Inn at Imola, where he is for the WEC tomorrow. We'll have coverage for that, of that for you on RS1, live and free and exclusive. Join us for that tomorrow. And it's also the second race here. This is quality stuff. Can I just remind everybody, and you, Neil, it's a 4-hour race. This is a 4-hour race, not a 4-lap race.
And this
around here,
carving past the traffic, this battle that's going on for ostensibly 4th place is like a sprint race. It's just, you know, having to go a little bit wider over the curbs than he'd like to get around that car from the different class, is while still trying to hunt down the car in front, is exactly what we want to see, with only sort of 29 minutes gone on this race so far. 2.5 laps.
I mean, basically, you're into traffic. If you're in the front group, you're into traffic by the middle part of your second lap, because that's the third group's starting lap. They've literally just started. So if you're in the third group, unless you're right at the front of the third group, you never get any peace at all. Jimmy Broadbent's just lost a position to the number 95.992, and that is the lead for the second starting group. Jimmy Broadbent, outstanding personality, loves his motor racing, converted from online racing to the real world. We've had him on Simcast, our programme on RS1 every other Thursday. A very accomplished real-world racing driver, one among many who've used the many driving simulations around here. Well, Gran Turismo was basically made its name with the Nürburgring Nordschleife, and probably did quite a lot, to be honest, to make the Nürburgring famous around the world.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, right from the start of GT Gran Turismo, it's been, I suppose you'd say it was the blue ribbon track, wasn't it?
Yeah, and every sort of iteration, this sort of, probably everyone who gets involved with sim racing online now would think that the origins that we're talking about, Gran Turismo on a PlayStation, was, but it was really, really important. It was entry level. It was the first game where you could race the Nürburgring Nordschleife. I remember being at Le Mans and having what went before esports, linked up simulators where people were racing each other around Le Mans to have a chance to race against Sebastian Loeb. And it was, you know, those the origins. They used to map the tracks long before the types of simulators that Max Verstappen and Jimmy Broadbent have spent many thousands of hours perfecting their laps on.
It's the voice of Neil Cole. I'm John Hindhoff. Good to have your company. Thank you for joining us wherever you are around the world. And if you have any questions, at RSL _studio on X, Johannes says, I'm not sure that test hill, the Steilstrecke, was ever actually used. They quickly realised it was too steil, it was too steep. The steep track, Strecke is track in German. A lot of the names that we use for these corners, obviously they're in German, but they are descriptive of what's around them or villages that are close by.
Well, they're those brilliant sort of German compound words, aren't they? Where
oh yes.
If you want to work out what it means, it's just break it up into 5 different words. You go, oh, that's what it means. It's the one on the left with the big hole in it. That's kind of whatever the German is. Linkshaule.
Well, we do have Fuchsruhe, of course,
yes,
which is the foxhole.
Yeah.
I think, one of the most stunning parts, and really takes your breath away, even in a fast road car through there. You really can't afford to unsettle the car. They've resurfaced that part quite recently, and now it means that you're taking an awful lot of speed up to the top, and then it isn't resurfaced and there's a change of surface and you've got to go down the gearbox. Absolutely outstanding piece of circuit. You pick up speed so quickly. The BMW Touring at the moment in, what did I put it in? I think I put it in 10th position, did I not? 12th position, sorry. Well, it seems to have dropped away just a little bit. There's been something going on there, because all of a sudden Jens Klingmann is down at 22nd. So maybe that was just a timing glitch. Who's he got in front of him? He should have a Ferrari 296. Yes, that is the Ferrari, the Condor Ferrari, the blue Ferrari, right in front of him. And in front of that, is that the back Falcon Porsche? Yes, it is. So that was where it is. Problem for the BMW, the 3M car. This is that E39 that we were talking about. We were hoping that it would get out and do some laps, but once again, that looks like it's sitting down on the right-hand side. That was where they had the suspension problems last week, Neil, and that's not good news for them.
No, and that's the second time it's stopped, actually. It did stop before and got going again. So that looks like it's possibly terminal for the number 36 car. A real shame.
Will, again, those of you who watch Le Mans, put Le Mans out of your mind, because if you get outside assistance, even if you get towed back to the pit lane, that does not, I repeat, does not put you out the race. The name of the game here is get the car back somehow and get the team working on it. And this is something you'll see in the 24 hours of the Nürburgring as well. It is absolutely crucial to get the car back in the race. Back to the pits. Peter Kate telling us last weekend that in all the cars that he drives, he puts a little map in, not because he doesn't know where he is on the circuit. He's brilliant, actually. He can pretty much do it with his, no, in fact, he can do it with his eyes closed and just talk you around the lap. But he has a map where all of the access points are, where he can get off the track, but more importantly, where a crew member can get to him and help the car being repaired, or indeed get the car towed and back to the pit lane. And I've just thought to myself, yeah, you see, that's thinking out of the box. Brilliant stuff. And it is now red flags. I have never seen this before.
That is a red flag.
I have never.
Very unusual.
I have never seen this except for weather.
Well, it's not
Race
snowing
control.
anywhere on the circuit.
Snow, ice or fog is the only thing I've seen stop a race here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Help me out, Johannes Guaglita. Zach Anderson asks me a question. The timing is showing code 60 and slow zones. The slow zones just double yellows. Code 60 and code 120s. But what you'll get is a single yellow, a double yellow, a code 120 and a code 60. It's never just straight into a code 60, Zach. And that allows the drivers to slow down. Hello to Mickey Hetherington. I haven't seen the footy results today. I'll try and catch up on that, so don't tell me. Try and see match of the day maybe tonight in one of the gaps in my work. Now, this would normally mean come back to the pit lane and sit in the outside lane, effectively in Parc Fermé. Let me give you the rundown. Motor Racing from Red Bull Team Abt Lamborghini, from Schnitzelarm Racing. Schnitzelarm, by the way, is a restaurant that serves nothing but schnitzel all day, all week, various different schnitzels. Yes, please. So BMW, Lamborghini, Mercedes, 23, 84 and 11. Then another Mercedes, that's the blue and white KCMG number 47 with David Pittard behind the wheel. Scherer Sports Audi's next up with Chris Haase behind the wheel. Then it's the Lush Motorsport Dan Arrow driven. Yes, it is the Porsche of the dark red and sort of gold colours. Conrad Motorsport Lamborghini is next, the 7 in 7th. Then the two Winward Racing cars, Engel ahead of Auer, that's 80 ahead of 3. And the top 10 made up by Thomas Preining. Now, this is going to be a bit difficult because some of the cars have already come into the pits behind the leading 17 cars. Max Hesse was the first car to go, the last car rather, to go across the line before the red flag came out. Frederik Vervisch in the HRT Ford Racing number 67 saw it in time to come into the pit lane. I cannot believe this is for that BMW at the first corner. I just wonder if we have got an issue. That BMW number 36 was parked at the entrance of the Mercedes Arena. I don't think that would bring out a red. I wonder if we've got something more fundamental with timing or race control or communication out on the Nürburgring Nordschleife. That leading group of 17 cars will take the shortcut back in to the pit lane. Hello to Jesse Young, who's listening.
So this red flag,
Go ahead, Neil. Sorry.
That's good. Sorry, this red flag sort of robbed us of what was developing into a lovely battle between Lucas Auer and Engel. The two Mercedes AMGs were battling, and it was looking very much like an overtake was only a few corners away. So
exactly.
Hopefully that fight will resume when this red flag is cleared.
The clock will continue to run, by the way. So, again, anybody who's looking to get laps for their permit for the Nürburgring Nordschleife, this is not good news. Oh, dear. Somebody's just gone through the start line there as well. Now, that was the KKM Racing Audi in SP9. The number 27 car, I think, went through. Yes, it was. And that car may well get a penalty there. I say that, I might be wrong. Maybe it wasn't that car.
And they're actually drawing up onto the aprons of their garages as well, rather than sitting in in a formation for a restart. This doesn't look like we're going to go ahead again anytime soon, which is a concern.
Putting the cars up onto the trolleys isn't unusual because there's not enough pit lane space to have everybody pointing straight down the pit lane, so they'll put them in at a 45-degree angle. We're not hearing anything at the moment from race control about what this red flag is about. Ambulance sighted on the Nordschleife entry. Okay, let's wait to find out for that. David Edwards Racing says, when we come to the 24-hour, there'll be other SP9 cars. When will those cars qualify? Qualifying weekend is a bit of a misnomer.
I was going to ask you this, John, because even I don't really understand.
Well, it's fine because there's a very complicated system of who gets into the shootout, who's already qualified for that, who will qualify for that, how many places there are up for grabs for the variety of shootouts that we've got. We've actually extended the shootout into three parts this year. Effectively, the NLS is a season-long series, of which, bizarrely, the ADAC RAVENOL 24 hours is not a part. But the early races do form a part of getting an entry to the 24 hours. Then you have to apply, and a bit like Le Mans, you are invited, if you haven't already done enough in the NLS, you are invited to come and take part in the race, which is why we'll see a lot more SP9 cars, particularly from the factory teams, through in May. So although this is called a qualifying race, or two qualifying races, really what it is giving people the opportunity to qualify for their permits and also to qualify for the pole shootout part directly, and any positions that are left we then work out on Thursday in a more traditional looking and sounding qualifying, and we'll be at the track for that as well, of course, bringing that to you. As I fear, I think this is something a little more different, a little more sinister than just that BMW. Take the opportunity to do a little more of the naming. We thank you, Johannes. Sorry, right turn lover, for this. Hocheichen, the high oaks. Well, there were a lot of big oak trees there. They had to be cut down for the track to build. Klostertal, that's German for monastery valley. There was once a monastery in that valley. Flugplatz, just at the end of the Hatzenbach. Not because the cars get airborne there. That's a common misconception. It's because back in the 1930s, this was the place to come and be seen. It was like going to a big horse racing meeting or a big tennis tournament. This was part of the season for the German IT set, as it wouldn't have been called in the 1930s. And the well-to-do flew down to the Nürburgring and to the Eifel Mountains, and there was a grass strip at the top of the hill just to drivers left there as they come across, so hence that was the corner closest to it. Flugplatz means airport in German. That's why Flugplatz is Flugplatz, and so on. If you go online, there is a fabulous track map and lots of resource for the naming of the curbs. Looks like a number of cars involved. I'm not going to speculate about that. We've had no update on the official ticker so far, and that is what we try to go on. What I'm going to very quickly do is whiz back through the race race control message board and see if there was any yellows that came out just before well, there was an issue at Bergwerk and a code 60, and at Flansgarden and Kesselchen. They're well round the track. If it was just on the early part of the Nürburgring Nordschleife, Bergwerk coming just after the Lauda links, the Niki Lauda left-hand corner, made infamous by Niki Lauda's fiery accident when Formula One used to race on there. So perhaps something has happened out on that part of the circuit, but for now we don't have that information. I'll wait to see what our German colleagues can tell us out there. And Klostertal, I think, is where the issue would be, and the potential incident out there. Again, let's wait for confirmation. Neil Cole and John Hindhoff here. We'll try and answer some more of your questions as we can. Quite a lot of cars at Klostertal off before the Caracciolo carousel on the GPS Auge, just on the lead up to that Steilstrecke. Again, the resources are there to have a look. It looks like the Dacia Logan came upon that at some stage, but that is a latecomer to that ball, I'm afraid. So this very unusual that this happens for anything other than the intervention of the weather. We did have a red flag last year when the pit lane complex lost power, and obviously you can't race if race control can't see around the track, so that cost a little while. Let's go through some more of the corner names. Galgenkopf onto the Dottigerhoog, Gallows Hill. Yes, there was a gallows there.
Wow. No, it's a good place to hang out.
Very good. See what you did there. See what you did there.
And then, of course, there's Quiddlebacker Hoers, where they play Quidditch.
Yes, thank you, Harry Potter. No. No, but I like your thinking. I see what you're trying to do there. Trying to bring in the younger audience. Very good, Neil. This will be frustrating for some of the teams.
So just to pick up on what you were saying, so even though it's called the 24 qualifiers, it doesn't mean absence or presence here for these 2 4-hour races denotes absence or presence from the actual 24 hours. It's important for people to recognise that. Correct.
That is absolutely right. Max got the whole race moved for NLS2, brought forward a full week because he couldn't, because this should have classed with a Grand Prix in the Middle East, of course, but he'd already qualified for the 24 hours. He didn't need to race here. He had his permit, and obviously the team were going to be given an entry, so he didn't need to come here to race. He didn't need to have that race moved to qualify for the race. It was his only chance to get in the Mercedes, the AMG, because remember he did his first race at the back end of last season. Great time to come to the Nürburgring. Far fewer cars out there, certainly far fewer cars in the top class. I think there was only 6 or 7 SP9 cars. He ran in the Ferrari at that point, which was the car to have certainly last year. BOP's changed slightly this year. The Mercedes perhaps in with a chance, the AMG in with a chance of winning for the first time in maybe 10 years. They haven't won the 24 hours since 2016. Yes, being here, not being here, it's more opportunity to prepare for the Nürburgring Nordschleife, and we are running on the version of the Grand Prix track that will be used in the longest race of the season here on the Nordschleife. So it's good practice opportunity, basically, is what we're saying. No Dacia back in the pits. I do think the Dacia is part of this incident at the bottom of the run-up to the Caracciola carousel. Fluid down as well. And the number 992 Porsche onboard stream has been snapped by a few people. That's the Manthey SP Pro car. And that car has yet... In fact, actually, that car hasn't come through Sector 7 yet, which is that part of the circuit. And we wait news of an official version of cars involved. What's basically happened, I think, is from about the mid-30s back, something has happened. The mid-30s on the timing and scoring chain. Something has happened. We believe it to be at the bottom of the hill, the right-hander that leads up to the Caracciola carousel. Actually, it might even be a bit further back than that.
Yeah, I think close to Tal.
Yeah, there's a few cars that's made its way back through their way back through to the pits, but there's a whole bunch of cars from about 36th to 69th that have not made it back. I was positing there that they might have been stuck at that part of the track. Then the cars that went across the line, 70th down to 112th, are all back in the pits. And then the cars 113th on back to the 120th. So did that adrenaline car start the 653 car, the BMW 240i? Maybe not. Actually, two adrenaline cars, I think, didn't take the start. They've made it. They haven't made it back. So we've got a very odd-looking timing screen at the moment, and a dearth of information. There's a very bright orange car out there that I can see on the onboard pictures, which I think is one of the Audis, if memory serves. So what we're waiting for is some news from the organisers and from race control, which they're normally pretty good at getting to us here. Apologies for not being able to give you any more, but clearly there has been some incident. This wasn't just for that BMW at the start of the lap that we were telling you about earlier on. The red flag came out at 5 minutes before 5 minutes before 6, sorry, local time. And that's about all we can tell you.
So clearly there's some kind of...
We've now had officially from race control, the race has been stopped by race control, an accident involving several vehicles. So that is now the official line from the Nürburgring race control.
And obviously there's a lot of cars that have formed a sort of temporary parc fermé car park behind that if it's blocking the road.
Correct. Yeah, I think you're exactly right there, Neil.
Very unusual scenes.
Yeah, I've been coming and commentating on this since 2007, and this is the first time I have ever seen a race being stopped for anything other than bad weather. Extraordinary scenes. I can't give you the rundown now because they all got mixed up when they came into the pits. So whatever happens from now on, as the clock ticks down to 3 hours and 15 minutes remaining, there will have to be a reordering of the cars at the last timing point that they all went through before the red flag came out, which I think is going to be the end of the lap, if I'm quite honest. the top 17 or 18 cars, 17 cars, wasn't it, went through and started another lap, and then the next set of cars were able to peel into the pits to the red flag to as required by the red flag regulations. So it's a bit of a jumble at the moment, because certainly it was not, with due respect to Fred Vervish, he's a very quick driver, as he showed with that 6 minute 15 Nordschleife lap in the Ford Mark IV. He's a very quick lap, but very quick driver, but he is not in the lead of that the race at the moment.
No, I think all we can absolutely confirm is that the car that set off on pole is still technically in first place of this race.
I think I agree with that. I would agree with that. I think when we get this sorted out, it will be the 23 Motor Racing BMW from the Red Bull team-upped Lamborghini from... At that point, I don't know. I think it's probably Schnitzelarm from KCMG, from Scherer Sport, from Lurch, from Conrad, and the two Winward cars. But there's cars in between them on the timing screen. Preining, I think, is in there as well, right behind our for Manthey in the Grello car. The Aston Martin Vantage for Nicky Team, that's going to be just sort of mid-teens as well. Frank Stippler for HRT Ford, see above comment. But that is my gut feeling and me using my memory of what I saw, because that's not what it says on the timing screen in terms of how they came into the pit lane. But of course, some people did effectively another lap, excuse me, of the Grand Prix circuit, and then cut into the pits the back way, which you are allowed to do even in racing, actually. They'd rather you did that if you have an issue than you went out onto the Nürburgring Nordschleife and then broke down, because it's harder for them to pick you up. The castle, which is just Nürburgring Castle, always get a picture of that when you go there. It's just finished being refurbed, actually, after a long time of scaffolding around it. For years I thought I was never going to get a picture of it without scaffolding around it.
Which is their equivalent of the Sagrada Familia, isn't it? It was never quite finished.
Which is now finished, yes. Apparently. It has been that also, yes, Barcelona's great landmark. Now finished after God knows how many hundreds of years. Let's give you some more of the name. So coming down the to the end of the Dodiger, Antonius Bücher, used to be the location of a large beech tree, belonging presumably to someone called Antonius, which again had to be chopped down to make way for the circuit. So it's just after the old Bilstein Bridge, and if you started a tourist lap, you'd start around about there. Tiergarten, animal garden, animal or pet cemetery, possibly for animals that were killed in battle, maybe for a local landowner's animals or another reason. That's through the dip and up towards rejoining the Grand Prix circuit. You've got then, of course, the rundown. Forget the Grand Prix track at the moment, and you have Sabine Schmidt curve. That shouldn't really need any explanation. Relatively new name, that, unveiled a few years ago in honour of the absolute ruler. We call her the Queen of the Nürburgring. She's the ruler of the Nürburgring. More laps than I think anybody else around there. Won outright twice, still the only woman to do so. Did a back-to-back, actually. Where else can we talk about?
I think Hatzenbach. I think Hatz is hunt.
Yes.
And Bach is stream. So I think it's the hunting stream, and Bergen is curve. So Hatzenbach-Bergen means hunt stream curve. Okay,
very good. Hunt stream curve, very good. I like it. You move through there to Hoeichen, which we were talking about, the high oaks. There's some still left, some had to be felled. on that point. We're sort of going round the track now. Kiddebach Hur, not the place they played Quidditch, but there is a village just off to there, Kiddebach. I've stayed there, actually, and you forget that there are houses relatively close. And we'd park the car up and you'd be able to see the lights if you were coming off during the night and getting a few hours kip, you'd see the cars running up the hill. And it's just after Hoaiken, the double right-hander after the jump, fearsome in the dark, particularly Flugplatz we talk about, that's the airfield. Nothing to do with the jump. I'm not sure we still use Cottonbourne really, but that is a little village. It's rarely used, that one, but some people still call it Cottonbourne. Schweidenkreuz, the Swedish cross. There's a large stone cross monument behind the Armcorps on driver's right there, allegedly placed there in 1638 in honour of the old mayor and tax collector for Adenau. Adenau, one of the villages that is within the Nürburgring Nordschleife, believed to have been killed by the Swedish army. That is super, super fast. You just get unbalanced over the top of there. Used to be a change of surface there now, but that fortunately has changed. But that's big commitment through there. Then you run in very quickly to Arenberg. That's at the top of the foxhole. Again, there used to be a surface change there, but that is the Aram Hill, where the Arenberg Castle sits, and there's a town just there as well. You turn right there under the bridge and dive into the foxhole, which we were talking about. The legend goes that a frightened fox hid there in a drain pipe during the construction, and building work in the late 1920s was interrupted before they could get the fox out of there. Sometimes called the foxhole as well. It's all the way down through. You pick up speed mentally quickly now. Adenau Forst is quite simply Adenau Forest. That again is quick here. The Koenigsegg crashed there, of course, trying to set a last lap record. And it's a pretty slow corner now, actually. Metzgerfeld, 1 and 2. A feld is a field, so that's Metzgersfeld. Probably the name of a previous landowner. Down to Callanhard, I mentioned that the other day. This one's a bit harder, really. Hart could be a hill. It was pretty barren and lacked any vegetation. Cold Heart, Cold Hill, Callan Hill, Cold Hill, maybe. As you drop down through that. Then you get down to the Spiegel curve. That is because you would often clip your mirrors down there, but that doesn't get used that much very often now. You hear people talking about miss-hit mitts. That is the next 3 corners, 3 right-handers on the way down to the big hairpin. You have to miss the first apex, hit the second one, and miss the third. Fairly self. But when I've talked to Peter Kate about that, that's exactly what he says. Versiphen is the slow hairpin, and that is the Defence Valley. Really slow hairpin. After it's the right-hander that leads in, which is actually quite committed and fast, and then you're immediately on the brake. So this is the corner that sits at a boundary between Adenau and Breitscheid, and probably a strategic point where either town could have been defended. So there we go. Breitscheid is the wide part. The town is at the bottom. That's the bridge at Breitscheid. There used to be, in fact, no, there is still a way to get onto the Nürburgring there for sort of half a lap of the Nürburgring, and so on and so forth. So there we go. I could go on, and we'll save some of them. If you are just joining us and wondering why there's nothing going around and the clock's still ticking down, 3 hours and 5 minutes to go. Neil Cole and John Hindhoff in the Global Broadcast Centre, waiting for things to resume. But a multi-car incident just before the Caracciola carousel at Callanhard. I cannot recall the last NLS race was red flag, not in the NLS era. Very unfortunate. Let's just hope that no one's injured. That's the main thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's tricky because we don't want to speculate.
No, indeed so. I know that there's an awful lot of people who are tuning in for the first time, and you want to see racing, you want to see Max get in that number 3 car, but quite obviously safety and the well-being of the drivers is absolutely paramount at the moment. Hello to Chris Suku. He says, thanks for translating the German names. It paints a picture as I drive around in GT7 or some other simulator. Can you break it out into a podcast, please? Do you know what? That's not a bad idea.
Well, up
we
for
might
that.
do that. Yeah, we might do a lap round the Nürburgring Nordschleife with the explanations of the names. Probably take longer than it would to actually drive it, to be honest, Neil.
It's a podcast series, 1 corner per episode.
Do you know what? You're not wrong, actually. Hearing from people at the area, and hello to Clark Duffy and some others, that there's quite a lot of fluid on the track after that multiple car incident. And again, we're hoping that everybody is all right in the run-up to that tricky right-hander at the bottom of the hill. And that is going to take some time, I'm afraid, to clean up. So stay with us. We'll try and keep you abreast of what's happening.
Yeah, because if something sprung a serious leak, then that will take a while to make it safe for racing.
Well, and I think the other part of it, Neil, is that there's been a lot of cars that have gone off and hit the arm core.
So
and that's very, very quick. Yeah. So we left you at the bridge at Breitscheid, the Broad Point. Shall we carry on? We might as well, I think, carry on round the track. Next up, Exmüller. That is Watermill. And guess what? There was a local mill that was powered by water from one of the many streams that run alongside the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Now, originally, the start and finish of the track was meant to be at Exmüller. The circuit owners wanted to build some grandstands on the land around it, but the owner of the water mill was stubborn and refused to sell it. It's a steep uphill right-hander that leads onto the Lauda left. Still, nobody really knows why Niki Lauda had that incident there in 1976. It's not an official corner name, but that little left king just before Bergwerk. Many people, even the drivers, call that the Lauda links. Links being left in German, by the way. Bergwerk is the next one. Bergwerk, such an important corner on the track, because you come through that and you are climbing uphill almost all the way to where the accidents happened, actually, which is quite a long way. Mountain factory, Bergwerk. Berg is mountain, Werk is a factory or a plant of some description. Apparently there used to be a lead and silver mine close to the mine there. I look that corner, you have to be so patient and take a really late apex on that. You start to climb up, there's a series of left-handers, one of which is Kesselchen, which means little valley. Hills either side of that one. It's quite dangerous there, and that is the last of the left-handers, and it slightly tightens, and you cannot afford to get your right-hand wheels on the track. I remember taking my 993 Carrera 2S there on a track day. We'd been doing some track driving with Aston Martin, actually, Aston Martin Racing. And at the end of their time, I asked, because there was nobody else out there, if I could take the car that I'd driven down in to do a lap, to say that I'd done a lap. And I went through there and the car was hopping. And I got back to the point of the circuit where you come off again, and on the Dottinger Ho, checked everything over. I thought there was something wrong, nothing. So I thought, okay, well, I've done my lap now in my 992. And spookily enough, a few weeks later, I was working with Sabine Schmitz on the Top Gear Live programme.
No way.
Yeah, her, myself and Tiffany Dell were doing the motorsport side of things, while the three big stars were doing the other side of things in a different arena. We did one at Birmingham at the National Exhibition Centre. We did one down at the Docklands arenas as well. And I thought to myself, well, there's no better person, is there, to ask than Sabina. So one night after we'd had dinner, we were sitting having a glass of wine in the hotel, I said, by the way, can I pick your brains about the Nürburgring Nordschleife? Yes, of course, she said. Lovely lady, much missed.
Yeah.
Klaus Abelin was with her as well. They were a couple in those days. He still, well, he doesn't race in the big races anymore. He's still doing some of the classic stuff. And I told her this story about how I'd gone through Klostertal, and the car was sitting down pretty well, and then all of a sudden it didn't slide, it hopped. And I said, I think, maybe the person before me or the person before me has done something to the suspension. Have they lowered it down too low? And she said to me, that sounds odd. What speed were you doing? I said, about maybe 130, 135. And she went kilometres an hour. I said, no, miles an hour. And she went, and she burst out into that big, absolutely trademark Sabina Schmidt smile and went, oh, they all do it at that speed. Okay, thanks very much, Sabina.
Love it.
Let's not do that again. So that's Klostertal, the Monastery Valley. We talked about that. Oh, how we miss Sabina. Then you head up to Moutkurve. It's called Moutkurve is courage. Mout is courage. And if you ever get to drive it, even in a road car, but certainly at any kind of speed, it's almost flat out, this left-hander. Maybe flat out in some front-wheel drive cars, some of the lower-powered cars, but you're doing it as quick as you can. You cannot hit the curb there on the left-hand side because the curb is quite high. I remember Ivan Muller having an almighty crash there in a World Touring Car race, which I think was held over 3 laps before we had the ADAC 24 hours a few years ago. I was helping out Martin Haven doing the commentary for that, and we had the helicopter shots, and Ivan was trying to overtake someone. They went through side by side there, and he just put his wheel on the curb, and that was it. Huge pinball effect down there at that left-hander. That then runs to Strijlstrecke, the steep track.
Just what you were saying there gives you a sense of the scale of this circuit, that when the World Touring cars do it, they do 3 laps. We've had 25 minutes of racing so far.
Let's remind everybody what's been happening. We got ourselves set up. We'll pick up at the Strijlstrecke for our drive around the track and the names. We got off on time in what were pretty decent conditions for the weather. And at the start, very feisty, but in a nice way. People, I think, looking forward to tomorrow and keeping the car in one piece as well. It was the BMW from pole position. David Pittard's down in 6th, trying to make a bit of a move in the lighter blue car. And everybody filed through. The BMW of the pole sitters managed to hold on, but then all the Porsche classes going through in the second category. And as we said, it was all pretty good. Lucas Al lost a position or two. Remember, they'd been docked 3 positions after accidents at the first corner in the qualifying session. So they started 9th in the number 3 Winward Mercedes-Benz. Bit of a problem for Dan Arrow. He went off, got dirty tyres on the Porsche. Actually, no, that was for the Kiefer machine. And that's the Black Fulton car. KCMG David Pittard tried to get round him. He couldn't get through, but there was momentum lost, and we were having a really nice build-up. Pittard went to the right-hand side. Is there room? Is there not? Yes, there was. Racing room asked for and given. Everybody playing nicely at that point. 2 Winward cars side by side coming up to pass the family-run RS3, pretty much a standard 4-wheel drive RS3, 4-door, that one, and Grello coming up, looming up in the background there. And then the red flag. For a wee while, we didn't know what had happened. but there's been, as we now know, multiple vehicle accidents just on the style stretcher there, heading up the hill towards the Caracciola carousel. That's how it stands at the moment. The Caracciola carousel is where we got to, actually. Now, it's dead easy. Rudolf Caracciola was the man who sort of combined circuit racing and rallying. I've always said that the Nürburgring is a bit more like rallying, and you might mention it earlier on. Well, if I said ditch hook to you, Neil, you would know exactly what I was talking about. That is the process by which top-class rally drivers will write their pace notes to know that they can drop their inside front or indeed rear wheel over the edge of either the gravel or the tarmac into at least part of the ditch to help rotate the car and slingshot them through the corner. Well, when the Nürburgring was first opened, you drove up on the top, the flat tarmac up on the outside, and some record-breaking events still do. In fact, Fred Vervisch did in the Ford Mark IV when he did the 615 a couple of weeks ago. The inside was a small drainage ditch so that when it rained, all the water went down there and it was concrete. And by 1931, trying to find a bit of lap time, the legendary Rudolf Caracciola put two wheels down into that area. Not all the way down, but he realised that he could take the corner much faster because it was kind of like positive camber. He won the race by just over a minute that year. And from the next year, basically, the drainage ditch was being driven like drivable banking, and it's been used ever since. It's really interesting because if you get it wrong, you either drop down to the bottom where it's even more bumpy than everywhere else and it shakes your fillings out, or you get fired out before the end of the bowl section, which also is uncomfortable, and you're not saving any time. When you get it absolutely right, and I've only done it once where I was anywhere near right, you get fired right out of the end of that parabolic bowl section, like a cork out of a bottle. And immediately you've done that and done it once, you know, oh, that's what you meant to do. And it's amazing because you start, it's all uphill there, so it's important to get out of there. Up towards Hoher Acht, which is the highest point of the track, the high point, and Hedwigshöhe, the Hedwig Height. Now that also sounds like something from Harry Potter, doesn't it? But actually, that is named for the wife of Dr. Otto Kreuss, the councillor for the Eiffel district in the early 1900s. He was the man who really got this place going. Her name before she was married was Hedwig, and he called the corner after his wife, Hedwig. Actually, no, that was her first name. So that was Hedwig's Height, and he reasonably thought that was fine. Wippermann is a seesaw. Wipper is a seesaw. So this is the seesaw man. Ask any of the drivers. It's very bumpy. Not quite as bad as it used to be. And because the direction change and the bumps there, it used to feel a bit like a seesaw. We talked about Eichbach, Ashbrook, a stream or a brook off to the side of the track. Ash trees around that as well. It's a bit of a funny one, Eichbach, because that is that also there's 2 or 3 corners that people sometimes call that. One of my favourite corners, and certainly a place where people go to, often called YouTube Corner. Actually, the official name is called Brünchen. You run down. It's very difficult to keep yourself to the left-hand side as you come down into Brünchen. The car naturally wants to go up the right, and the camera's taking you down there, but you need to tuck in to the left, and as you fall down, it's then a right-hander and another double apex right-hander. And as you come out, you can use all of the paved area. It's like block paving on the left-hand side. And there used to be a small stream that had a number of pipes that supplied water to the nearby village. Brunchen is small water. And then you head up hill to, we talked about Eisbach, the Ashbrook rather. Then we've got Ice Curve, the Ice Curve. And that is ICE curve, not internal combustion engine. But that is often slippery there. A lot of people said it was slippery as ice. Some of the last parts of the track to dry open. It can be a bit greasy there. Overhanging trees, really, down through the years have made that a little bit difficult. And then you're coming in a flat-out part which goes left and right and left and right. Just after the jump, the Flans Garden. So this is a nursery, a plant garden, or some kind of nursery, and you fly down through Flans Garden 1 or 2. Again, there are areas of that where you can use some of the top of the curbs and some of the block paving, but you have to know which bits, because you can easily unsettle the car. The road is highly cambered in the middle there as well. And one of the keys to a fast lap out on the Nürburgring Nordschleife is to set the car up a little less stiff than you would normally do if you were just running on what would be a normal race circuit, even the normal racetrack here. And you have to do that because the car has to be compliant as you go backwards and forwards across the middle of the road, across the crown of the road. Stefan Beloff, the Beloff S's, legendary driver, that sadly lost his life at Spa, but not before he set the qualifying lap record in 1976 of 6:11.13 in his Porsche 956. Talked about this earlier. That is still the fast. There have been cars that have gone around there quicker, but they have not been in homologated racing cars. Now, you can say that that is not a race lap record, absolutely, but in 1976, I think he set the race lap record as well at around about 6:20. I'd have to look that one up. There have been cars, notably some of the electric cars, the Porsche, Timo Bernhard as well, actually, went a bit quicker than that in the de-restricted and highly modified Porsche 919 hybrid. That they put some special batteries in. Michelin built them some special tyres. Talked to Timo about that. He said there was more to come, but Stefan Walliser, who was the Porsche Motorsport director at the time, says, Timo, we've beaten Stefan's time. Let's leave it at that. There's no need to do any more. Let's honour him by doing that with another Porsche, which I thought was very nice. You can just about drive that in a straight line. Beloff crashed there, actually. Another reason why it was named after him. Then you run down into the Schwalbenschwanz, which is the Swallow's Tail. It's another bridge section, so you go right and then left. Again, this goes back to the late 1920s when the circuit was being built. The shape of a swallow's tail, really. Easy place to get wrong. We've all gone off there in the simulations, and the Armco is very close there, and there's a bit of a gravel track as well, trap as well. Then you go on to the second, or the kleiner carousel, the mini carousel. Not quite as severe as the Caracciolo carousel. It doesn't double right back on itself, but it leads to one of the most important corners on the track in terms of giving you an opportunity to pass. We talked about the Gallows Hill, or the Gallows Head, Galgenkopf, public execution sites. The gallows were there. Long. I learned this. I learned the word triple pressure from Martin Haven, from his commentary on tobogganing and luge and bobsleighs. But that's what we have here, and it is in some ways a trade-off, in some ways a patience. 2, maybe 3 separate corners. You almost can give up the first couple of bits of the corners because You want to get on the power as early as possible through the final part of this long right-hander. You want to be, it's really hard. You want to be on the power, you want to be on the power. But if you're on too, you always know when you're on too early, because then you've got to back off again. And in doing that, you absolutely kill your speed down the next part of the circuit, which is the 2-kilometre long Dottiger Höhe. Now, you should have worked out by now that Höhe is Höhe Act, it's height. Well, Dottiger was a little village nearby, so it was the highest part of the village of Dottiger, and that leads you back down to where Antonius Bucher and Tiergarten and back round, and there you go again. I told you it would actually take us longer than to drive around there. And the joy of it, Neil, is that you can do it in your own car. You go down there when it's open for tourist laps, tourist fahren. You go halfway down the Dottiger Höhe, you go and pay your money. You get a digital card. I remember when it was, I think it was 30 euros, 28 euros maybe for 4 laps, I think it was. I think it's more than that for one now. But if you've never done it, it's absolutely worth it, because it will give you a completely different way of looking and mindset at people who are racing on it. Because even driving a fast road car around there, you can't drive it at 100%, and neither should you. These guys are. The opening laps in the 24 hours with 170 or now 150 cars on the track, when that first group gets to the back of the third group on their on the first group's second lap and the first group's first lap and the first group's second lap, should I say, the helicopter shots, it looks like a police chase, and so does the onboard. It is unbelievable. And when you've driven around yourself, and it doesn't matter how fast or how slow you go, you just take it at your own speed, keep your eyes on your mirrors, make sure that if you're going to move one way or the other to let someone by, a faster car by, and pretty much I will guarantee you, however fast you think you are, there will be someone quicker, because on those tourist laps, there'll be somebody who's on semi-slick or slick tyres with a cage in the car, and who knows it like the back of their hand. So you indicate the way you're going to move. So if you're going to move right and let them go left, which is the preferred way of doing it, you indicate to the right and move when it's safe to do so.
I think a few times I did it, it's the fact that you get a minibus or a couple of motorbikes that's sort of freaked me out. We do have an update from Race Control,
Yes,
John.
indeed, Neil. I see that now. Do you want to go through some of the cars that we now have confirmed as being in the multi-car collision in the Klostertal section?
Yes, we have a total of 7 vehicles that were involved, and the barrier needs repairs as well. The cars involved are the number 27, the Aston Martin Vantage AMR GT3, the car number 111, the BMW 325i, car number 121, another BMW 325i, the 410 Porsche Cayman GTS, the 448 Porsche Cayman CM12, the 503 Toyota Supra, and car 992, the Porsche 911 GT3 Monthé. So rescue operations are underway, and we'll get more information as soon as possible. But there is oil on the track on the lead into Klostertal, as I understand it. But lots of barrier repairs being required, and injured drivers being attended to. So obviously it's quite a big incident. 7 cars involved, so that would explain why we've had a lengthy red flag.
Add to that list actually the 503 Toyota Supra as well into that. I think that one has just been added. I mean that is a fair variety of cars from throughout the field, which I find interesting. Obviously the Aston Martin AMR GT3, the number 27 car. I can't remember where that started, but that is a quick car. And you wouldn't have expected it necessarily to be around some of those other cars there. Also that Manthey car as well, the 992. That's one of the GT3 Cup cars. There's a separate championship for Porsches here on the Nürburgring Nordschleife within the Nürburgring Langstrecke, Langstraker just means long track series. So that's a bit odd that it's cars that I would have expected to be spread wider throughout the grid. The BMW 325 is one of the E90s, one of the older cars. Still allowed to race here, and rightly so. The 325s have a great battle in a class that's pretty much their own. And two of them involved there, the 121 and the number 111. Those cars still very, very capable racing cars. Indeed, not dissimilar to the car that Sabine Schmitz and her sister learned their trade. Her sister, a very good driver around here as well. Sabine, as I think many of you will know, lived... her mum runs one of the most famous guest houses and restaurants, still in the family. And that's where Sabine and her sister were brought up. They had a BMW that the sisters decided was a good idea to start turning into what you might call a ring car. And by the way, I will give you a rundown after this story, because the clever people at our timing have reset all the timing, so I can give you as it stands before we restart. And so the car was generally modified, stiffened, different suspension, a little bit of a tweak of the engine here, a change of the exhaust there, and it was becoming more and more specialised to the point where they decided to put not full race slicks, but certainly what we'd now call track day tyres on. Now, this is a few years ago, in fairness, and there was then, and in fact still is, a scheme where locals get a reduced rate to go and use the Nürburgring Nordschleife on those tourist lap days, the tourist Fahren days, tourist drive days, and also in those days they used to get some laps to themselves as well, just for the locals. So Sabine and her sister would go out there and rag this BMW around the Nordschleife, and that's how they learned it. Brilliant stuff. And the roads around the Nürburgring Nordschleife, by the way, in the Eifel, are just as demanding. And I can imagine the two sisters on the roads as well in that BMW, round by the old Südschleife as well, the southern loop, parts of which were still roads until relatively recently. Some of them still are. And the story that Sabine told me was that her mum was going to a hairdresser's appointment and had got to the hairdresser's, and it was very wet that day, as can be the situation in the Eifel Mountains. And in the early days of mobile phones, because of Sabine's mum running the guest house and the restaurant, she had one, and Sabine was back at base, as it were, and gets a phone call, and her mum says, "I think there's something wrong with the car. It was very odd when I drove it to the hairdressers this morning." And Sabine said, "You took the BMW to the hairdressers?" Of course, it was running on semi-slick track day tyres. And she said, "Yeah, I managed to get it here just about, but it was really handling very oddly." Sabine said, "I'll come and pick the car up and drop you a different car off, so you don't have to drive it back." And that was how she learned it. Absolutely brilliant, by just repeat. Learned it section by section, then tacked the sections together, and that was how she became so proficient. And as I say, still the only female to have won the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Did it 2 years in a row. So we are still under red flag, and we're coming down towards 2.5 hours at the moment. There's no sense that there'll be any time added back on. Let me give you a rundown as I see it on the screen that has been reordered now. So we were right in our assumption that the Motor Racing BMW was leading. It doesn't matter about the gaps. I'm not going to bother giving you the gaps, because that was just how they would have crossed the timing point at the end of lap 2. Schnitzelam Racing Mercedes number 11 in second. Red Bull Abt Lamborghini Huracan in third, the number 84 car. Then the white and blue KCMG AMG in 4th. That was the 47 car. Scherer Sport Audi in 5th, the 16 car. The Arrow, the Dan Arrow driven 48 Losch Motorsport. Porsche. Then the second of the Lamborghinis, 2 in the top 7. That was the number 7 Conrad car, that lighter blue car. Both of the Winward Mercedes in the top 10. Maro Engel and Lucas Auer having dropped down, I think, to 10th or 11th, then got back to 9th before the red flag came out. Thomas Preining making up the top 10 in the number 911 for Manthey Racing, the Grello car. The Trinity Solutions Aston Martin Vantage with Nicky Team, the number 34 and 11th. Frank Stippler for HRT Ford Racing with the best of the Ford Mustang GT3s, and that's the 65 car in 12th position. Alessio Piccardiello, Dunlop Motorsport, Porsche 911 in 17th position. Mühlner Motorsports, classic colours again for that team with a lot of cars in different classes. That's the blue, black and white Porsche 911 GT3R, another SP9 car. So these are all SP9 cars at the moment that I'm going through. And we'll wind up the top 20. And after the Mühlner Motorsport, the Gorion RT by Car Collection, Porsche, the Falcon Motorsports portion, the Rover Racing BMW, the Sherbert Motorsport BMW, 19th Frederick Vervisch for HRT, and the Black Falcon team team Porsche, the one we saw off the circuit, the number 5 in 20th. We have just heard by race control that we are suspended till further notice. So nothing happening at the moment. So what we'll do is we'll take a break, keep an eye on what's going on, and on RS1 we'll play some content for you. Kerry will sort something out. But here on the World Feed TV, we're going to take a short break. Keep an eye on the screen. As soon as we see anything, we'll put up either a graphic, or Neil and I will be back with you to let you know if there is going to be a resumption. But the story is, with 7 vehicles involved in a multi-car collision at Klostertal, there is still work going on there. That happened some time ago now. Right now, there's just over 2 hours and 32 minutes to go. This happened at 6:55 local time. 5:55, excuse me, local time. So we've been under red for just over an hour. For Neil Cole, I'm John Hindhaugh. Sorry we can't bring you any more racing, but you'll understand that safety has to come first, and the well-being of everybody involved in that incident. Speak to you soon, I hope.